Welcome to the Fear and Greed Summer Series, brought to you by Vanta, specialists in compliance-led growth. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
And good morning, Adam Lang.
Good morning, Michael and Sean.
Now, gentlemen, in just 5 minutes, we are each going to put forward a big story from international news, really. That's what we're looking for today. And
global.
Yeah, global stories, because we are a global podcast. At the end, we are going to decide which story was the biggest. There is no judge. We decided between the three of us, so it's kind of like democracy at its very worst. Let me see. Sean, you go first today. I've drawn you out of the hat.
Right.
Go on.
More than half the world's population was eligible to vote in a national election this year. I think that's the biggest international story. The US, of course, was the most influential. 334 million people were eligible to vote. The biggest was India, 1.4 billion people over 6 weeks in what I think was a logistical nightmare. We had countries like Indonesia, 277 million. Pakistan's got about 240 million people. Bangladesh's got about 173 million. They all went to the polls. Throw in South Africa, the European Parliament, France, Sri Lanka, Japan, Portugal, South Korea, Mexico, UK. You know, you get the gist. According to International IDEA, 74 elections were held in 2024. Voter turnout was about 61%. Now, only 1 in 10 countries, 10%, actually has compulsory voting. So turnout at 61% is pretty good. Trends, according to Pew Research, tough year for the incumbents. Think the US, think the UK. Trend number 2, right-wing populism showed some staying power. So countries like France, Austria, Romania, particularly in Europe, right-wing populism seems to be hanging around. Trend number 3, polarized battles over tradition and change. The US is a great example of that. France was another one where the kind of old-style politics versus the new-style politics. And the final trend, more than normal, international conflicts played a role, particularly in Europe because of Russia and Ukraine. Really big story that lasted the whole year, Michael.
Yeah, and in terms of the number of people that were affected by that, it is a hugely significant story. For me, the big story this year, global story, is China, right? It's all about China, right? For Australia, I suppose, at least, because Australia's relationship with China has improved hugely, significantly, dramatically this year. There's been meetings between ministers, key ministers, even face-to-face chats between Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and China's President Xi Jinping. Yes, we still have diplomatic disputes, some big disagreements over big kind of humanitarian issues, but on a trade basis, right, the end result of this improving of the relationship between the two countries was that the $20 billion in tariffs that have been imposed on Australia have now all been lifted. Everything from our wine to our lobsters and everything in between. Actually, there's not a huge amount of ground between wine and lobsters, is there? There's a lot of other things elsewhere.
And I like a lobster being lifted.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
Quite a nice image, isn't it? The thing is, though, China's economy is slowing, not helped at all by a massive debt crisis involving property giants in that country. Beijing has this year announced a number of big stimulus measures designed to try and boost its growth. Now, these measures...
You'd call that stimuli, I think, Michael.
Did I interrupt you, Sean?
No, but I'm getting a bit bored, so keep going.
How can you be bored by this story? This story is so significant because it matters to Australia.
Stay strong, Michael.
Because China needs our resources, chiefly iron ore, but coal, everything else that we have to offer, China needs it. China is our largest trading partner, the world's second largest economy. A slowdown in China is big news all around, and it affects Australia disproportionately. So I got a little bit worked up. My story was only a minute long, and yet you still managed to really get under my skin, Sean.
Apologies, Adam, your biggest story of the year.
Okay, one word, Trump. As Sean said, over 50% of the world population went to the election polls this year. The USA is the biggest economy in the world, and this year it also gave us the biggest election result on the planet. If self-belief was a measure, Donald Trump has always been a world contender, but this year he defied the predictions of many polling companies, if not the gamblers, to see off Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris as the Democratic presidential nominee. criminal charges, the occasional bending of the truth, and spectacular self-confidence got the support of the American people, and he will become the leader of the free world again in 2025. Markets worldwide surged on the back of the result as we attempted to assess what Trump claims were rhetoric and which would become fact. So for me, it's just one word, the biggest international story of the year, Trump.
Michael, we've been trumped by Trump.
I think we have. And you know what? Unfortunately, I suspect you get second place because yours kind of ties into that as well.
Yeah, but I'm sort of off the coattails, so I think I'm going to give it to you. China-Australia relationship, probably bigger for we here in Australia than the Bangladeshi election.
Oh, well, I just snatched myself a silver medal. I will take
Well
that.
done.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Michael.
Make sure you hit follow on the podcast. This is the Fear and Greed Summer Series brought to you by Vanta. Vanta automates compliance for frameworks like ISO 27001, SOC 2, CPS 234, and Essential 8, saving time and money while building trust. Join over 8,000 companies like Atlassian, Dovetail, FireAnt, and Tactic.io, managing real-time risk. Get $1,000 off at vanta.com/fear and greed. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is the Fear and Greed Summer Series.